Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friend, and I hope you are excited for today's topic, setting goals in marriage and the power of it. I mean, I don't know if people generally get fired up about setting goals, except maybe at New Year's. But maybe you should reconsider if you're not excited because, setting goals in our marriages is super powerful. And today we're going to talk about why and how you can do that yourself. But first, I just want to kind of excuse the potential noise that you might hear in the background and explain. I'm actually having some feelings today because I have some lovely human beings out around our driveway cutting down a lot of our trees. And it's not because we don't want them there. I love trees, which I'll tell you more about in a second. But they're ash trees, and the ash borers are here, and they're killing the trees, and they're gonna fall all over the road and the driveway and hurt people, and if we don't cut them down. So they look healthy now, so it feels especially sad to be seeing them go. But in this case, it's for the best, and it will help the other trees around them grow up. But on the note of trees, as I was saying this, it did make me think that I don't know if I've ever actually even mentioned it clearly on the podcast, but part of what I believe in and part of my business model is to give back and to make the world a better place. And as part of that, I've decided, actually I started in the new year, for every client who comes to me, I plant 100 trees in your honor. And so we're planting hundreds and hundreds and thousands of trees around the world because of you and other highly sensitive women coming to me to transform their marriage. And absolutely what's happening is that as you transform your marriage, you're also transforming the world. And I do this through an organization called Trees for the Future. It's totally an amazing organization. It's not just about planting trees to help the world and the environment, but it's also changing people, specifically in Africa's lives. Farmers in Africa and families, their lives are just being completely improved by this organization and by planting trees and learning how to forest garden and, making a livelihood off of it. So if you feel like checking it out, it's Trees for the Future. And also just know that if you come to me to change your marriage, and right now the only way to work with me is by joining my group program, Treasured. We're gonna be planting lots of trees, 100 in your honor. All right, so with no further ado, let's talk about the power of marriage goals. So let's back up to before you got married. And for most of us, before we got married, we have a goal of doing so, of getting married. Right. And that may or may not be consciously framed as a goal, right? But it feels like a desire, something that you want, at least for most of us. But the interesting thing is oftentimes once we actually get married, having goals around marriage often stop. Yeah. We got the gold. Yeah, exactly. We got the golden goal of getting married, and then that's whoop, that's it. And I think sometimes what can happen there is we just kind of expect it to automatically be great once we get there. But then, of course, when it doesn't feel great, we feel really bad that it isn't that way, right? But what we're not realizing is that continuing to have goals in our marriage, for our marriage, is a really good thing. And will seriously help us in getting way more of the experience we want of marriage. Yeah. So clearly you can hear that the key is goals. they really are very helpful. Now, if you're not a super set a goal and focus on it, like in the straight and narrow way, like me, I'm not. The idea of setting a goal in your marriage might seem kind of off-putting or too much like an accomplishment you must achieve or work towards robotically. Yeah, I can feel that and relate to that. Ugh, doesn't feel so good. But I do want to offer that goals do not have to be gone about in that way. Yeah, and I will talk a little bit more about this in a moment, because there are ways we can have goals that aren't this way, that work maybe better for a lot of us who are highly sensitive, who are more creative, who are more kind of intuitive, and who aren't just like, set a task down in front of me and I shall accomplish, slay, 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 right? Okay. But first I want to start off here by kind of selling you a little bit on why goals are so powerful and why you should have them in your marriage. And I even think they can be fun. And I'll start with that because I think like them being fun they're especially fun when we start to see ourselves actually moving towards them, right? Actually taking steps and accomplishing those steps that are going to get us towards those goals. I've had a lot of fun with that in my life in various ways. So goals can be fun. They can feel really rewarding. They can feel really fulfilling. But they're very powerful in what they help you do, which is actually reach your goals and create and have what you want in your life. And in this case, we're talking about marriage goals. So they help you get to the marriage you want. They help you have it. Yeah. And the first reason that I want to talk about is that your brain functions better with goals. See, like I need to give a little background on this. The brain is what creates your experience of life and how you act and operate and navigate life, right? Including your marriage. And if you don't really understand what I mean by that, I'm just going to refer you to lots of the other podcasts because I've explained like it's our thoughts and that come from our brain and the way we relate to the world around us that actually leads to our entire experience of life and actually what the results are that we have in our lives. So take that in a little nutshell, or if you want to learn more, there's just listen to my podcast. There's a lot of them that talk about that. So the brain is what creates your experience of life and how you act and the results you get. But the brain has a sort of default natural tendency to rinse and repeat what it's already created over and over again. So it creates what it's already created in the past, what it's already experienced by default. And this is because, and we're going to get more into this, the brain really likes to be efficient. It likes efficiency. It's wired to be as efficient as possible, to expend as little energy as possible. And so it develops habits and patterns that it wants to keep. Like it wants to keep to, it wants to stick with, because it's easiest for it to stick with a routine. It requires less energy. Yeah. Which means it's just going to keep repeating everything that came before, everything you've already done, all the experiences, everything, right? Over and over. So like if you have painful patterns in your marriage, if you have experiences like you don't like arguments or tension or hurt or lots of annoyance or frustration, right? All of these things or blame that blame and criticism and like that's coming from you, like you get this idea, right? You get it. Your brain is going to keep recreating those things, those feelings, those ways of seeing things, those ways of behaving over and over again, right? Unless you intervene and direct your brain towards something else, towards something you want. So now I'm really hearing those chainsaws in the background. I hope it will just fade away. Can you hear it? But anyway, I won't think about that right now. I'm going to direct my brain back to the podcast and not my poor little trees. Okay. So if you want experiences in your marriage of harmony, of love, of connection, of respect, of enjoyment, of laughter, right? Of that sense of being on a team that I hear all the time from my clients. That's what so many of us want, right? If you want that in your marriage, you've got to direct your brain towards having those things. Yeah? This is why setting a goal is so incredibly powerful. It really gives your brain something to focus on. It gets that super creative, like life-creating brain focused on and behind what you want. So it's not creating what it's always been creating by default. Which again, for so many of us, is dullness and unhappiness and pain in our marriages. So in other words, if you don't have a goal or goals for your marriage, you're likely to just keep creating more of what you already have. So if you do not feel totally satisfied with what you have in your marriage, then it's time for a goal. It's time to set a goal or some goals in your marriage, for your marriage. So I'm going to give you a few steps that you can take today to set and reach your goals in your relationship. So the first step is to decide what your goal is in your marriage. What is it going to be for you? And when I say what is your goal in your marriage, I want you to make it a big one. Make it the big vision for your marriage, right? Sit down and dream up what you most want to experience in your marriage. Think about how you would feel in that goal, in that marriage that you want. Yeah? How would you handle yourself? How would you communicate? How would you interact? How much affection would you both display? How much love making? How much teamwork on chores? How would disagreements be navigated? How would the culture of your marriage feel? Now, I know I just asked those questions really fast, and you can go back and kind of consider those if it's not really obvious to you already, what your goal is for your marriage. And I totally recommend actually writing them down. This is a step I didn't plan to share, but I'm just realizing writing it down in and of itself is so powerful. So write down the goal, the big goal you have for your marriage. And I say goal, but it's also goals, right? Because a big goal is little goals, which will a big what's the word? It's made up of a bunch of little goals. A big goal is. And we're going to talk about that more and how you can use that to help you reach your goals in a few minutes. All right. So once you've named that goal, the second step to actually start reaching that goal, so step 2, is have a plan that's deliberate that will help you reach that goal and follow that plan. So have a plan and follow it to get you there, right? So you aren't just throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? So you're not just I have this goal and now I'm gonna try all the different things, right? It can work to try all the different things, to throw spaghetti at the wall and hope something sticks, right? But it can take a really long time and lots of spaghetti, yeah? So a better metaphor for this might be, think of your goal as a destination. Let's pretend the destination is Paris, right? If you just head out your door from wherever you live right now, unless you live in Paris, which you might, right? If you just head out your door and you start walking with no compass or no map or no GPS, it's most likely going to take you a really long time and lots of energy and sweat, blood, and tears to get to Paris. I mean, I live in Vermont. If I were to do that, I might never actually get to Paris, right? So this is why a map or a GPS is key, right? So when it comes to our goals, a plan is the map. It is the GPS. And of course, as I talk about a lot, this means not just learning about how to create the thing you want, but actually taking active steps towards it every day, right? Following that plan and taking active steps that are kind of in the general, within that general plan, doing that every day, right? That's how you're going to create different outcomes in your marriage than the ones that you have now. Now, for sure, there are different plans and paths to creating the goal that you have for your marriage, right? But what matters is not so much what the exact plan is, right? What exactly the plan is, but that you have a plan and that it's tried and true to get you to your goal, right? And of course, that you follow it. And so this is why my coaching program, Treasured, is so amazing, because it gives you that plan. It provides you with the map and all the support you need to move through that map, follow that plan so you can get the result, so that you can reach the goal that you have for your marriage. And by the way, this plan, of course, is specifically designed for you as a highly sensitive woman and the unique challenges and desires that you have for your marriage. And of course, it's proven to work. It's tried and true by other highly sensitive women like you who have created the marriage they want through this plan, this process. And it even helps you address the doubt and the uncomfortable emotions that might come up along the way as you follow that map, which we will now talk about because it's key to be aware of. Otherwise, you're very likely not going to actually achieve your goal. Now, actually, before I launch into that, I do want to share as sort of a side note, which is when I say follow that plan every day, again, it doesn't have to be in a mechanical way, like I was talking about earlier, that robotic way. I like to think of kind of holding my goal softly and lovingly listening to myself and what will be most supportive of myself to move toward and follow that plan every day, right? Versus in that robotic way that doesn't really listen into myself in the moment, right? Like some days for my clients, taking a step towards their marriage goal and following their plan actually means not doing any learning in the learning site that they get access to. Or it may mean resting or going on a date where they don't think anything about their goal and they just have a nice time out with their partner. Or it might mean like taking what I've called in one of the episodes, I broke it down as a highly sensitive person retreat, right? Like a getaway by ourselves. It might mean spending the day away from our partner. There's so many ways in which we can listen into ourselves and kind of be having this bigger, like holding that big goal, but working towards it, not in this like, this is what I must do way, but like where there's room, right? Where there's spaciousness. And actually a really great related episode for this is episode 80 of this podcast. It's called HSP's 2 Modes for Best Change in Marriage. So if you're not like a super like I set a goal and I follow a plan to the T, this will be a great one for you, I believe, to listen to. And so when we work towards our goals, it's always done, at least in my world and with my clients, it's always done with an honoring of ourselves, right? A listening to ourselves, a checking in with what would serve us best in the moment, in the day, in the overall process of getting there, right? And it's always done with lots of compassion and self-acceptance, right? Self-compassion and self-acceptance. Really, really important. So let's look at step 3, and that is to expect and work with the obstacles that come up so you don't fall for the old trick and fail. So let me explain. So everything that I've said up until now sounds all fine and good and it makes sense, right? Setting the goal, following the plan to reach that goal, listening into yourself as you do so, right? But obstacles will come up and we got to expect them. So we're going to take a look at what those might be. There probably are other ones too, but I'm going to give you a few. And the first obstacle is really often just at the beginning, which probably was the case for some of you before listening to this podcast, right? We don't even set a goal at all. Or if we do, we abort it right away. We quit. Because why? Yes, our brain again. That human brain. The amazing and somewhat difficult human brain. Yeah. Because the brain's most basic jobs are to keep us comfortable and keep us alive. And the key is here, most efficiently, right? So its jobs are to keep us comfortable and alive in the most efficient way possible. Meaning, again, expending the least energy possible, taking the easiest way possible, i.e., sticking with what's familiar again. Yeah? Like rinse and repeating, like I said, rinsing and repeating, like I said before. So either having a big goal feels too hard. Like there's some part of us like that subconsciously is like, oh, the goal. I couldn't set a big goal for myself. Like that would be hard, right? And so we unconsciously don't even want to set a goal. Yeah. Hopefully I've helped assuage that challenge for most of you. But the other thing that happens is as soon as we do set these goals for ourselves, our brain brings up all the doubts that make us very uncomfortable. Yeah. I see this with my clients and people considering working with me all the time. They get really clear that they want to improve their marriage, right? Your goal, I want to be clear, like your goal can be that vague, right? But it is more useful to get specific, which is why I had you get a little specific before. But these lovely, lovely human beings, they get clear that they want to improve their marriage. But then when they actually go to get started creating that goal, that outcome, their brains bring up all the doubts. And one of the ways I know this is happening is because over the years as a marriage coach, a lot of people have come to consult calls and really loved it. Like loved what our plan was, loved hanging out with me, and just felt really good about it. But then some doubt, some fears, some discomfort came up, and they just weren't able to take the next step of actually coaching with me. And I get to hear why, right? And what I've learned over the years is it sounds something like this inside of their heads, like when their brains are bringing up all the doubts. And by the way, I have been here. When I set goals, my brain offers the same things because this is very human. This is what our brains offer when we set goals for ourselves, right? When we actually go to start that goal, our brains say things like this. I don't know if I can really do this. Maybe coaching won't work for me. Like, I'm not sure my husband will respond like other people's husbands if I do make these changes in myself. Yeah, so some of you might be like, oh yeah, I totally have those doubts. Or like I'm too emotional or sensitive, or I have too much of a hard history. I don't know if this can work. I don't know if I can do this. Or sure, like this coaching works for lots of other people, but maybe not for me, right? Or I hear this with my clients, like when they've already started coaching with me, sometimes they'll have things that in their brains telling them like, well, I've tried this for a few weeks and I'm not great at it yet. Maybe I'll never get it, right? Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I should just stop now. Or thoughts like this, like me and my relationship are too uniquely messed up to ever really change. or I'm afraid nothing will change. Right? I don't know if it's worth the effort and the investment and my energy and my time, right? So you can see there's a whole lot of thoughts that our brain offers us that lead to feeling doubt and fear and insecurity and all the feelings when we go to start to work towards our goal. Yeah? And when these sorts of things come up for my clients and these amazing women in my consults, I do like to remind them that of course that's coming up, right? So I want to remind you now, like, of course these thoughts, these sorts of thoughts, right? They're going to be unique to each one of you, but they're going to come up for you when you set a goal, when you start to work towards that goal and you start to decide, I'm going to follow this plan, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to make it happen, right? That your brain's going to come up with all these thoughts, right? When you're trying to do something you've never done before, your brain is totally going to be like, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? How's it possible for you? Look around. Like, most people don't have that goal. Like, most people don't get there. Like, that's not realistic, right? So our brains want to and will create a lot of very uncomfortable and scary emotion, right? Fear, anxiousness, self-doubt, despair, sadness, shame, right? It can also, present as feelings of confusion, feelings of resistance, feelings of like disbelief. I don't know if that's really a feeling, but you know what I mean? Like discouragement maybe is the feeling. Yeah. And it brings up these thoughts in a tactic to not have to change, right? It wants to not have to use the energy it will take to change. And it wants to keep us comfortable, right? It wants to stay the same. But in other words, it brings all of this up because it wants you to stay where you are, because it's easy and familiar, which to your brain means comfortable. And I put that word comfortable in air quotes, right? Because to your brain, it means comfortable, even if you are currently actually very uncomfortable in your marriage. Yeah? And this is a really good time to share this story or fact about how there's been research that shows people who are in prison, when they are released from prison, they often reoffend because it's more quote unquote comfortable in prison than to be free in the world. Not because it's better in prison, not because it's literally more comfortable. Like, you don't think of prison as that being a place of great comforts, right? Great food, great comfortable beds, great company, right? No. The reason it feels comfortable to be back, more quote unquote comfortable to be back there, is simply because it's familiar. And it takes less kind of effort and energy for their brains to adapt to being used to the free world than it does to just be in the very discomfort of prison. So to tie this back to our goals, like what happens for us that can so often happen is because our brain wants to stick with what's familiar, even if it's imprisoning, even if it's very uncomfortable, like a very unhappy marriage or even a kind of unhappy marriage. What we end up doing because of that is we give up the goal. We give up on it. So we don't have to experience the discomfort of the doubt and fear. But then we also don't actually create what we want. And we keep ourselves in the very unhappy marriage, in the discomfort of our current lives. We keep ourselves with exactly what we have now. So what I want to offer here is if you if you have a goal for yourself of making your marriage one that you love, expect some challenging emotions to come up. This is normal. It's totally a normal part of the process. Doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. And please don't let it stop you. Like, it stops so many people. Yeah? For so many people, these sorts of thoughts and emotions, right, this tactic your brain does, leads to failing ahead of time at our goals, right? Because we give up before we even get started or get very far into our goal. Yeah? Or the other thing that can happen here with all of this is that we can end up going for really small, easy goals because they seem more realistic. Like goals that are barely better than what we already have. Like maybe it's like, oh, if I can just feel like 1% less bad in my marriage, right? Or maybe we can fight once a week instead of a few times a week. I mean, that's like not a tiny goal. It's a good goal, but like let's make your goal big, right? Like go for what you really want. Yeah. Right? Like like maybe what you really want is resolving long-standing issues and come out feeling closer and more in love and secure in our affections than we've ever felt, right? And keep feeling more and more in love and connected over time. Like that's a beautiful big goal. A lot better than just, well, maybe we can fight once a week less, right? Right. So, but this is like what our brain does. It's like, we'll just do a little tiny goal because somehow it feels easier and safer. But then what happens is we don't make much change at all. And then we wonder why things are still so hard and unhappy. Yeah. So what's happened here when we do this, when people do this, is that we're trading that instant gratification of relief from very short-term discomfort from the doubt and fear that comes up when we start working towards our goals, right? We're trading that for very long-term discomfort of not being happy in our marriages for life. In other words, we're trading, we're getting very short-term comfort, but we're losing long-term, yummy, happy comfort in our marriages. Yeah? In my opinion, that is not a great trade. Yeah? Like, what do you prefer more? A bit of discomfort in the form of some doubt and fear coming up here and there, but a marriage that you love as the outcome? Or do you prefer no doubt and fear, but lots of other painful emotions that you're already feeling in your marriage to keep going on for life? That's like the trade we're looking at. That's the choice we're looking at. And my guess is you truly prefer the first option in your heart, right? That what you want in your marriage is worth a little bit of short-term discomfort to get to that long-term comfort. Yeah? So if that's so, I suggest that you don't let yourself be uncomfortable for life because you can't tolerate a bit of doubt and emotional discomfort as you work towards your goal of lots of love, right? Or any goal you have, right? So make space for feeling some short-term discomfort as you work towards long-term happiness in your marriage. The price of getting to a marriage you love is a bit of initial discomfort, but the reward is lifelong comfort and joy, security and love. And the price of not working towards your goal of a marriage you love is long-term unhappiness. And the reward is a very fleeting sense of relief, like, woo, I'm safely back in jail again where I'm used to. But then quickly comes out, oh no, I'm so unhappy here. Yeah. So I know I've kind of said the same things in various different ways here, but I really want to get through to you on this. Because the emotions of doubt and nervousness and all of that are part of what you need to move through and expect and allow to be part of your experience to reach the goals you actually have for yourself. Now, of course, when my clients work with me, we actually, part of what I help people do in general in their marriages and as they're working towards their goals is learn how to be with and allow that discomfort, that emotional discomfort, in a way that feels more peaceful. Like I help them have peace with that discomfort. So it's way less problematic and actually way less uncomfortable. So if you decide to work with me, of course, you're going to get so much support in that way that the discomfort isn't going to really be a big deal. It's going to be like that tiny wave in that big ocean of all the good stuff. All right. So maybe we could call this the fourth step. It's really just like a hack to work with. So, to work with your brain so it doesn't abort your goals, so it doesn't quit on your goals or doesn't get you to quit on your goals. And that's circling back to this idea of setting smaller goals within larger goals. Yeah. This is actually going to keep you from kind of tumbling into as much of the doubt and fear and anxiety and unsureness and confusion and overwhelm that can come up because the brain is like trying to get you to not grow, basically, to not change. Another way of saying this is just take one step at a time, right? Again, like if we look at a mountain and we're like, I need to get to the top, it can feel kind of overwhelming. But if we just look at like the next step or the next step, let's not even say the next couple steps. We just take one step at a time. It's easy to get there. So much easier to get there than like trying to jump up the whole mountain, right? Conquer the whole mountain. No, we're just going to take one little step at a time. We're going to set one little goal and achieve that little goal, and then set the next little goal and achieve that little goal, right? And as we do this, what happens is we get more confidence in ourselves, like more faith in ourselves, and that we can do it, right? That we can take this next step. And we relax a little into the knowing that we can do hard things, we can grow, we can shift things, right? And this, of course, gives us better capacity to reach the next little goal and the next little goal and the next goal, right? That will eventually lead us to reaching our very big goal. Yeah. And as an example of this, in my program Treasured, we have a big goal that we each set, right? That each participant, each client sets for their marriage, right? Kind of like a more in-depth process we go through to set our goals. But to achieve it, then we break it down into steps or sub goals, right? That I walk my clients through. And some of those, just to give you some examples, are building sensitive awareness of our brains and our nervous systems and how they work and what they're doing to create what we're experiencing, right? And learning how to decrease our stress levels and learning how to decipher what I call fact from fiction, or our interpretations from reality, and learning how to catch our lizard brain when it starts doing its thing and intervene in it, and learning how to be with and relate in healthy ways to our emotions, and learning how to choose our emotions and regain access to our love, right? And learning how to feel our amazingness as a highly sensitive human. All of these things, all of these steps, all of these sub-goals, along with other sub-goals, are achieved along the way to reaching that big goal of having that loving, intimate marriage that you want with your partner. Yeah? And actually, this is really describing another way of kind of describing having a plan, because a plan, it isn't just like jumping to the top of the mountain, right? It is always, the plan is the sub-steps, right? It is the path that you're going to walk one step at a time on. Yeah. So having that and, thinking about like just one step at a time, that's going to really help your brain not flip out, not bring up so much resistance and doubt and all the hard emotions that keep you from actually working towards your goal and then, of course, achieving it. So, to wrap this up, let's just quickly review. Having goals helps you actually achieve what you want in your marriage, right? So set that marriage goal. And then know that there will be some doubt and discomfort as you work towards that goal. Expect this and don't let it stop you. If you do let it stop you, what you're doing is robbing yourself of what you most want. And to help that from happening, prevent that from happening, have sub-steps, have a plan, and honor yourself, listen to yourself as you kind of hold that plan lightly and take steps along that plan in one form or another every day. Yeah? And if your goal is to have a marriage that you really do love, where you feel secure and precious and loved, where there's lightheartedness and easy connection, where you feel like loving allies in life, I invite you to join Treasured. And I will coach you all the way to reaching that goal. And to keep it easy and simple for you, your very first sub-step to that big goal of getting there is simply deciding to do it, to join Treasured. The next sub-step may be figuring out how to make it work for your schedule or your finances or whatever, right? Just some little logistics there. And then once you've done that and you've enrolled, I'm going to give you the map and I'm going to help you follow it and address any and all obstacles that come up along the way to getting to that marriage that you so want with your partner. So the next step, again, is simply filling out the enrollment form, which I'm going to put a direct link to in the show notes, or just head over to the description page where you'll find the link for the enrollment form and, any information you want to still know about Treasured. And that you can find at www.lifeisworthloving.com. And in the menu bar, you'll see Coach with Me, Treasured. Should be pretty straightforward. And of course, if you decide that's not right for you at the moment, I still, of course, encourage you to set marriage goals and consciously, intentionally, actively work on them every day. I still do in my marriage, and it's continued to evolve my marriage in such beautiful ways, and I want the same for you. All right, my friends, be oh so well.